Mr. Hiten Parmar is the strategic advisor to e-mobility in South Africa, and he's here to share with us what the future of electric vehicles is and what will be the most important vocational training skills that you'll need to have as a graduate in this industry. And now, Mr. Parmar, it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to the 7th ATTC. It's over to you.
Good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to join you at this conference event, a very great event showcasing the technology and opportunities for our learners. I'm Hiten Parmar. Pleasure to join you today. By profession, I'm an electrical engineer coupled with business administration qualification. With that, I've spent about 20 years within the industry across various segments, and then obviously within the last 10 years, specifically on the space of electric vehicles. South Africa initially began its journey transitioning into new energy vehicles in 2005, with full electric vehicles coming into South Africa in 2013. So with that, I'll get over into the presentation just to set the scene on a few topics for the session itself. So, when we look at South Africa's landscape on electric vehicles, as mentioned, we've been a few years already on this space, and let's unpack that further. So, one of the major challenges where we're seeing globally moving towards electric vehicles is the challenge with emissions. Back in the 19th century, transport was primarily on horse-drawn carts, but with that we had the crisis of manure that really affected the air quality in the cities in the 1900s. Wherever you stepped out from your home or your place of work, you would walk into manure from the horses that were being utilized for transport then. That's what gave the development of the internal combustion engine of petrol and diesel engines, what we're using today, literally a whole century later. But what that has really impacted in our cities in terms of the air that we breathe is poor air quality in major cities. Johannesburg is ranked 13th in the world as worst polluted city in terms of air quality. And as we see from the image on screen, there is a brown haze that exists in some of our cities in South Africa that really impacts air quality within that. Our National Department of Transport highlights that road transport accounts for 91.2% of emissions across transport itself. So already in South Africa, we're facing this crisis as we speak, primarily from the combustion of petrol and diesel with that. So as we look on to that, South Africa has also had a deployment of various technologies moving to full battery electric. With that, we've seen some of our governments embracing fleets of electric vehicles in showcasing leadership and their commitment, building awareness creation about the technology itself. And then also mining, the mining industry is radically moved towards battery electric vehicles underground, because this again improves air quality within the mining space and also a lot more efficient with that as opposed to diesel locomotives. We're seeing the logistics industry as well, utilizing electric vehicle fleets for their logistics services in their commitment to sustainability as well as affordability for their operations. In tourism, we're seeing the applications of electric game viewer type vehicles being utilized for safari and other opportunities. And then also proudly South African three-wheeler that was developed in the Western Cape in Stellenbosch that is being utilized by multinational companies in South Africa as well as exported to Europe in terms of that. And then you're looking at different types of utility vehicles, such as forklifts and other type of applications that are fully powered by battery electric. We've also had developments in the heavy duty space. So we've got fully electric trucks in South Africa, both in heavy duty and medium duty, as well as pilots of electric buses that are transporting people and scholars by future transport that is actually active on the ground in South Africa. So this is really pioneering, and really we're giving credit to everybody that's involved in this application of the transition to electric vehicles and electric mobility. So what's important to note that every mode of mobility, whether it's a wheelchair, whether it's a bicycle, whether it's a tricycle, a motorbike, a car, a train, a ship, a vessel, any mode of mobility can be electrified as we transition around the fuel that we used yesterday to the fuel we need to be using today and for our future. And what's important is that our learners and our youth get exposed to sustainability in terms of their air quality, in terms of their mode of transport along this journey. Now, if we expand on that, one of the questions is, where will we charge these electric vehicles? One of the important statistics is that 80% of charging of electric vehicles actually takes place at home. Literally, as like your cell phone, when you get home, you literally plug it in and it charges overnight from that perspective. With this, as we see on the slide right now, we're showcasing all the public charging infrastructure across the country. So many people will not know that, that we have a lot of infrastructure already available in the country. What the brown icons illustrate is fast charging stations. This typically will fast charge a car anything between 15 minutes and 25 minutes, typically at your shopping mall or wherever you are, where you're lying idle, and that's where you can pick up a fast charge. Our major highways like the N1, N2, N12, N3 have charging stations available every 300 kilometers. So typically where you'll take your rest break, you can pick up a charging station there. Also, your shopping malls and other areas have these type of charging stations available. But important to note as well, one of the questions that will come up always in South Africa is, what about load shedding? Fortunately, load shedding, we know when it's scheduled and we have a time. So either your vehicle or your charging station can be scheduled to charge accordingly with that. You've also got different types of charging stations that you can charge electric car. Either it's going to be a high power or low power. One of the major benefits as well is that each vehicle comes up with a convenience cable to charge your car. What that means is, just as you charge your cell phone from a normal wall socket, you can charge your electric car. So out of load shedding, you've got the opportunities to charge your electric car from that perspective. Also importantly, as many companies and homes and businesses have been faced with load shedding, there's been a rapid uptake of solar energy and battery backup systems that have been utilized either at homes, businesses, and other facilities, including shopping malls. So we're seeing in most cases that most of these public sites that you will actually charge for your electric car, you'll be able to charge in those sort of scenarios. Now, when we look at what are the job potential opportunities within the space and the value chain of electric vehicles, this is really interesting because Europe has profiled 1.1 million jobs to be created within the industry by 2030. South Africa itself has got a strong commitment to 2030 as our national development plan, which speaks to employment, job creation, skills development, and a carbon-free society, including carbon-free transport. So if all role players within South Africa take this opportunity quite seriously, we will have this fantastic opportunity of really empowering our youth and future skill sets to embrace their skills and transition as we move from the carbon-intensive society to a carbon-free society as we globally transition to net zero. So with that is some key highlights of where it is. But what needs to happen within the learning space is that the whole value chain from fundamental education to primary education to secondary education to tertiary education to vocational training and the workplace, we need to have this full readiness for the transition to electric vehicles. What's great is it's nothing novel. It is a simple battery system, power electronic system, a battery system, and then electric motor in simple sense. So it's a lot more simpler than our traditional petrol and electric vehicles, petrol and diesel vehicles that we see on today's roads. So with that, together with various parties like we're having today's conference, we look forward to educating everybody and enlightening what is this transition and the actual readiness that we need to do in South Africa to prepare ourselves. So with that, I look forward to having a discussion with you, Kathy, in taking up some Q&As with that.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think it's been interesting to hear just where we are in as far as e-mobility is concerned. When I think about the role that technology has played in transport, one of the big issues has been around regulation. If you just think about what happens with the e-hailing services, is that an issue that's likely to affect e-mobility at all?
Great point there. I think we know one of the most important things is regulation, because that's what guides consumer safety and guides the industry as a whole. Fortunately for South Africa, within the respective committees, we do align to global standards, and within that we have the ECER 100 regulation that really guides the technologies and requirements for electric powertrain systems. So fortunately, we have aligned to those sort of international norms and standards that we have that's applicable in South Africa for typical electric vehicle applications.
In terms of the skills then that are needed, if we think more broadly, just beyond sort of some of the artisanal and vocational skills that we're looking at here, I mean, thinking back to the presentation made by Notolo from Sasol earlier, one of the big things that was a focus for future skills was legal consultations or legal and regulation, if memory serves correct. What would you say are some of those key skills that these artisans are going to need to have in order just to give them that edge above the others?
Yeah, great point, because we're seeing also development of the technology landscape with that. We're seeing one of the skill sets is mechatronics. It's a merging of mechanical and electrical skill sets, and that's one of the opportunities within that. With electric vehicles, we're seeing that the whole value chain of the skill set is being needed. You're looking at chemists, you can electrical, mechanical, all of those will all need to be integrated in that. But what's interesting enough, when we look at the future of mobility is autonomous driving. Now, that obviously removes the driver from that engagement, but in the legal framework, who, in the event of an accident, who's liable? Is it the driver? Is it the software company? Or is it the car manufacturer? And this is the legal battle with the space of self-driving vehicles in where we see.
We were having a conversation earlier. An article I read spoke of a young boy who was in a self-automated car that was caught speeding. But the traffic officer simply didn't know who to write the ticket for. So it's a problem that we're already facing today.
Indeed, yeah. Indeed. And so we're seeing this challenge that technology leaps ahead of society, and regulation and standards, and the legal system needs to play catch up towards that.
All right, Hiten, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right.